Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Randa Khoury, a board-certified dermatologist practicing at Kaiser Permanente in Northern Virginia.
And I'm Dr. Goldberg, also a board-certified dermatologist practicing at Kaiser Permanente in Baltimore, Maryland.
We are so excited to be here with you today talking about one of our favorite topics, sun protection, and there's no better time to do it. So many of us are spending time with our families outside at the pool and the beach, and we just really appreciate you taking this time to spend with us to talk about how to enjoy all those wonderful things safely.
Yes, this is something that we discuss all day, every day in our clinic. So we're really happy to be here today to give you some of our tips, to talk about why this is so important, and also to answer any questions that you may have. So if you are following this live and you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box to post any comments you may have, and we'll try our best to address any questions as they come in.
We're going to start by getting a little bit nerdy because at our heart, we're nerds. So just go with us on this. I think you're going to take something fun out of the science. One thing that we hear often is that our patients have a belief that if they're not burning, their skin is fine. And we want to myth bust that right now. Just because your skin isn't burning doesn't mean that the sun isn't doing its damage. And the way we like to think about that in dermatology is picturing the waves of the sun kind of coming onto our skin and what they're actually doing. Short waves are called UVB rays. And previously on sunscreens, you might have seen kind of full spectrum UVA, UVB protection. They've largely kind of changed the way that labeling works now, but this is what that means. UVB rays are short wave rays that cause your skin to burn. Sometimes we would say B for burning. And those rays are the ones that are responsible for giving us kind of the skin discomfort when your skin turns pink or red, feels a little bit tight, and then it could even peel or, God forbid, blister. Those are the UVB rays that are doing that, which is not good, sure. But the UVA rays, the long wave rays, these are really the ones that are pretty sneaky because they're not going to cause your skin to burn. They're going to cause your skin to tan, but they're really the ones that are doing all of the things that we don't like, increasing your risk for skin cancer, making your skin over time look more leathery, more wrinkled, contributing to fine lines and dark spots and the loss of texture and elasticity that we associate with healthy, non-sun damaged skin. And when you put these two together, oh boy, it's really not great. Quick word about tanning beds. Tanning beds, many people believe, are safer for exactly this reason. They rarely give you a burn, but they give you what people consider to be a nice tan. We don't use the term nice tan in dermatology, but you know what I mean. Long wave UVA rays are really all that's contained in those tanning bed bulbs. So if you think about it, you're putting yourself into this close range UVA situation where you're not getting the burning rays, which are really our body's alert mechanism that, wow, you've really been exposed to the sun. You should get out of there. You know, this is a warning system. We've bypassed that warning system and we've gone straight to these long wave UVA rays that are doing just close range, intense damage to the skin. So if we take anything out of this, we want to learn just because you're not burning doesn't mean it's okay. And tanning beds are not your friend. Dr. Goldberg is going to talk us through some of the things that we see with this chronic exposure. And we have a wonderful photo that we're going to share with you. Maybe wonderful is the wrong word, impactful photo that we're going to share with you that really, I think, beautifully illustrates what happens with this exposure over time.
Thank you. So like Dr. Khoury mentioned, it is so important to protect our skin from the sun for many different reasons. Some are short-term, immediate effects of the sun, like a painful sunburn that we want to avoid. And many of the issues are longer-term down the line. Chronic sun exposure, blistering burns, and even that everyday tanning is going to increase our risk for skin cancer and increase our risk of premature aging. Sunspots, fine lines, wrinkles, leathery skin. And we did want to share a photo that was actually published in one of the medical journals. This is actually showing a photo here of a truck driver. He had actually been driving a truck for almost 30 years, most of his career, and he came in to his dermatologist with these issues that were limited to the left side of his face. And you can see here the fine lines, the wrinkles, that leathery texture, the loss of skin elasticity. And what really we found from this is that while the front windshields of our cars or our trucks have some UV protection to them, the side windows have very limited protection to the sun's ultraviolet light. So if you're the driver of a car or a truck and spending time outside during daytime hours and not protecting your skin from the sun, you're going to develop these chronic changes over time. And you can see that striking change from left to right. Dr. Khoury, did you want to add anything with this picture?
I think you said it perfectly. And I will just call attention to the fact that if you look at this striking facial asymmetry, if you blocked out both sides of the photo, you would almost think that they were two different people. And we hear this often from our patients where they say, wow, I feel like my skin has aged so much. And I look at my sister or I look at my cousin or my mother who just looks so different. And when we kind of start talking about why that is, it's so behaviorally related. It's all about our relationship with the sun. So many of us, me included, grew up in a world where sun protection just wasn't something we talked about. And the skin never forgets. Every tan, every burn, every little bit of sun exposure that we get is cumulative over time. So when we're really young, we see our kids go and play on the beach and maybe they get a little bit pink or they get a little bit of a tan and they seem to resolve with absolutely no effects after that. It just kind of comes and goes. But that's not the case. Our skin is holding a grudge. It's storing up all of those little offenses over time. And as we reach the age of this patient who graciously shared the photo, we start to see all of those effects coming out. And regardless of the tone of your skin, whether you have melanated skin or you're very fair, when you're very fair, you have that sort of adaptive mechanism of burning to tell you you need to avoid the sun, you need to go and seek shade, you need to wear your sunscreen. Melanated skin often will not burn, or at least will not burn as easily, which tricks those of us with more pigmented skin into thinking our sun protection is less crucial. And that is not the case. Regardless of your skin type, this is such a beautiful illustrative example of what happens when we're just exposed to ambient sun over time. This isn't somebody who is laying out on a beach and getting burnt or tanned all over. This is just part of an occupational exposure that unfortunately wasn't addressed until we reach this point where the opportunities for correction are limited. So all of this is to say that while we can't change the past, we can certainly take control of the health of our skin's future.
That's a great point. So I think we've talked a lot about why we want to protect our skin from the sun. We want to prevent burns. We want to prevent premature aging, fine lines, wrinkles, sunspots, and most importantly, we want to reduce our risk of developing skin cancer over our lifetime. So how can we do this? Because it is so important to go outside, to enjoy all of your outdoor activities, spend time exercising, swimming, hiking, whatever you like to do. And you can certainly continue to do that with the appropriate safety measures in place. So we'll talk about some of those. And I think the first one we wanted to talk a little bit about today was sun protective clothing. So how to physically cover your skin and protect it from the sun. So this is an illustration that brought a little chuckle to both Dr. Khoury and I. This article came out in the New York Times not too long ago. An article that tells you how to get absolutely no sun this summer. And they're showing a really good example about some of the sun protective clothing that's out there. We certainly don't expect everybody to go out into this much extreme with an umbrella to top it off, but sun protective clothing is one of the most powerful tools that we have to protect our skin from the sun. I also feel like it makes our lives so much easier because, as we all know, using sunscreen and finding shade, it can be cumbersome and it can be a burden to continue to reapply, to get somebody to help put sunscreen on our backs. So if we're using sun protective clothing, that can give us excellent coverage that can last us throughout whatever activities that we're doing. So when we talk about sun protective clothing, we usually mean a hat and not just a baseball cap. We like a wide brim, usually 3 inches around. It's going to cover your ears. It's going to cover the back of your neck. And sun protective clothing, preferably long sleeves whenever you can, long pants whenever you can. And the goal is to cover as much of your skin as you can. Dr. Khoury, did you want to add anything there?
Absolutely. I think these are such good tips because oftentimes we think of as long as you're wearing clothing, you should be covered. But that's actually not the case. The average white t-shirt has an SPF of about 3, which is not sufficient. We'll talk a little bit more about the numbers that we're shooting for later, but it's just not going to give you the kind of protection that's going to be meaningful in the long run. That photo that we just showed from the New York Times, I think it's funny that both Dr. Goldberg and I shared that our husbands, both not dermatologists, sent us that picture and expected us to feel very seen, which we did. And then we shared some photos, we both have young children, of how you can spot the dermatologist's family on a beach, because we employ this sun protective clothing in our own lives for our own families with such regularity. It really does make things so much more goof proof, rather than thinking about getting sand and sunscreen and trying to grab your wiggly children, or quite honestly yourself, to interrupt whatever fun activity you're doing to reapply every 90 minutes. It's kind of onerous. And that's why these new sun protective clothing lines are so great, because I'm sure you're listening to us talk and you're thinking, that sounds kind of horrible. That picture looks like no fun. And I don't want to sit on a beach in a parka. And we get it. And so do the makers of sun protective clothing these days. It used to be kind of a fringe or niche product where you would have to go to a specialty store or a sporting goods store. Now I've seen them everywhere. All mass market retailers are carrying sun protective clothing that's really elegantly done. It's breathable, it's lightweight, and you want to look for a tag that says UPF 50. UPF is the clothing designation that's going to be equivalent to an SPF 50, and it is a real set it and forget it situation. If you find clothing that is comfortable for you and your family and you put it on, you absolutely don't need sunscreen underneath, and you just have to hit the areas that are covered, which are generally going to be your highest risk areas: your face, your neck, the backs of your hands, and you're done.
That's exactly right. We did get a question that came in about water or sand reflection and how that affects UV lights. And that's such an important point. Things like sand and water absolutely do reflect the sun's ultraviolet rays. And so you do want to be cautious. If you are wearing a wide brim hat, that doesn't mean you can go without sunscreen on your face, because while the hat is shielding you from the UV rays coming from above, we are getting a lot of reflection from things like sand and the water. And so it is important for any amount of skin that's uncovered to supplement that with sunscreen.
Absolutely. And another, I think, important part of this question is thinking about sunscreen as a topical product. So if you are covered in sand and you're applying sunscreen on top of that, you might not get the most sophisticated or even application. So you may want to consider a second coat. Same thing with water. Many sunscreens are labeled waterproof, sweatproof, sportproof. And it doesn't mean that that's inaccurate, but it does mean that, much like any other topical product, it is going to dilute the effectiveness if it hasn't fully absorbed, or certainly in the case of a chemical sunscreen, like we're going to talk about in a little bit, if it becomes neutralized. So great question. Water and sand does affect both the amount and the type and the direction of the ultraviolet light that your skin is going to receive. And it also affects just the physical application of that product.
That's exactly right. Let's move a little bit into sunscreens also, because we've already established that you can cover a lot of your skin and you can do it in a really elegant and nice and lightweight way, but it's almost impossible to cover every inch of your skin that's going to be exposed. And so sunscreens can really help bridge that gap. And it can be overwhelming when you walk into the drugstore and you're trying to pick out a sunscreen and you see so many different brands and labels and numbers. And so what do you look for and how do you pick a sunscreen?
This is one of our favorite things to talk about, isn't it? I feel that sunscreen is such a confusing topic overall. I think we touched on a bit earlier, as consumers, our relationship with sunscreen has changed so much over the course of years. But the beautiful thing about the way sunscreens are made now is it really doesn't need to be complicated. There are simple categories of products, and we're going to kind of talk you through those and help empower you to choose the one that's best for your needs. First, we're just going to talk about SPF in general. What do those numbers mean and how to pick the right number for you? SPF is measuring the percentage of the sun's rays that are going to be blocked by any given product. At an SPF of about 30 with perfect use, which means that you are using enough sunscreen, which is kind of a lot. It's a golf ball sized amount of sunscreen for every body unit. So a golf ball for the head and neck, a golf ball for each arm, a golf ball for your abdomen and torso, a golf ball for your back, and a golf ball for each leg. Now picture all those golf balls in a tube of sunscreen. You've just used up an entire tube with a single application. But in order to get true SPF 30, they are assuming perfect use. It's also assuming that you're going to reapply every 90 minutes, which again, that's a high bar. That's tough to do. But let's play along. Let's assume that we've used an entire tube of sunscreen. We've covered our entire bodies. We're reapplying like champs. SPF 30 is going to give you about 92% protection from the sun's rays. When we go up to an SPF of 50, we're going to be blocking about 98% of the sun's rays, again, with perfect use. The difference between 93% and 98% to us in dermatology is meaningful. I think that that is something where if you asked, do you buy an SPF 30 or an SPF 50 for your family? I buy an SPF 50. Now, when we're talking about going above an SPF 50, what is the difference between 98% protection and 100% protection, which is not achievable at any SPF? That difference is less meaningful to me. So unless you've talked with your doctor or you have a photosensitive disorder where that little 2% margin is going to make a difference, you probably don't need to invest your money in a sunscreen higher than a 50. A 50 is going to do the job. So that's really the first parameter that we talk about is the number that you want to look for. And for the average person, 50 is a great one to shoot for. After we talk about the numbers, we start talking about the families, the types of sunscreens. And really there's two main families. There are mineral sunscreens and there are chemical sunscreens. Dr. Goldberg, will you talk to us a little bit about mineral sunscreens?
Sure. So mineral sunscreens are also known as physical sunscreens, and oftentimes these will say mineral sunscreen on the bottle. Mineral sunscreens contain one of two ingredients or both, zinc oxide and or titanium dioxide. And these physical blockers, they sit on top of our skin. So when you rub them in, they're sitting on top of your skin. They work right away and they work as a shield. So they are deflecting those sun's UV rays from your skin. They will bounce them right back off so that the UV light cannot penetrate. They won't enter your skin cells. They're not going to alter the DNA. They work very good at deflecting those sun's UV rays. So again, that's mineral sunscreen, that's zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. They are excellent sunscreens. Some people don't love them because oftentimes they'll leave a white cast on your skin. They might be a little bit harder to rub in than chemical sunscreens, and that's because of the ingredients that are in the mineral sunscreens. And so if you really hate that white cast, there are some ways to get around it, or you can choose a chemical sunscreen that rubs in a little bit better. But mineral sunscreens are really nice for those that have sensitive skin or eczema-prone skin. They don't contain a lot of chemicals, so they tend to be better tolerated and less likely to create skin irritation. So they're great choices if you have sensitive skin, eczema-prone skin. If you have very fair skin and just want extra protection, they really protect your skin well from the sun.
Most products that are formulated for babies or kids tend to be physical sunscreens. So that's a great way to find one. If you are not somebody who loves to scrutinize labels and you're looking to kind of grab and go, almost exclusively formulations for babies and children are going to be physical sunscreens. Dr. Goldberg made the excellent point of this kind of thick, heavy, white cast feeling that we've come to associate with physical or mineral products. A lot of the newer formulations do a much better job in that space. Some of them are tinted, which many of our gentlemen patients or our younger patients push back against that a little bit because it feels like a makeup. But in my view, it's really just kind of correcting that white cast. So rather than the product coming out white, which does not match all of our skin tones, it comes out with something that blends a little bit more seamlessly. So you're not going to see that finish if a chemical sunscreen is just not something you prefer. The tinted sunscreens also have the benefit of often containing an ingredient called iron oxide, which recent evidence suggests can block even visible light. We're not going to get into this today because it's going to make you afraid to just live in the world. Dr. Goldberg and I have talked about this offline as well, but there are some studies that are showing that there is a bit of an advantage to blocking visible light as well. The sun is not your friend. So if you're really looking for something that is goof-proof, complete full spectrum protection, looking for a tinted physical or mineral sunscreen is a great choice.
That's excellent. Let's move into the other category, the other large category of sunscreens. These are what we call chemical sunscreens. This is the bulk majority of sunscreens and the ones that probably most of our viewers are familiar with. Chemical sunscreens consists of different chemicals. Some examples are oxybenzone or avobenzone, and these chemicals are basically absorbed into our skin when we rub them on, and rather than working as a shield and deflecting the sun's rays like the mineral blockers, these absorb the sun's UV rays. So they're absorbing the ultraviolet light and not allowing it to go deeper into your skin to damage the DNA in your cells. And so by absorbing those ultraviolet rays, it's protecting the sun's rays from going deeper into the skin. These tend to rub in very easily. I think a lot of patients like how they rub in the skin, how they go on the skin. These do take a little bit longer to become effective. So when you hear about how it's important to get this on 20 minutes before you go into the sun, this is the reason why. Um, a small percentage of patients can have some irritation or allergy to some of these chemicals or fragrances even that are in sunscreen. So if you do find that using sunscreen can irritate your skin, it may be from one of these chemicals or one of the fragrances that are involved. And again, that may be a reason to switch to a mineral sunscreen. But again, these you can find them in all of the SPF numbers. They are broad spectrum, and they also can do a really nice job of protecting your skin from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays.
It's so true. And I wanted to talk a bit about some of the controversies that have been swirling around sunscreens. When you hear about these things, by and large, we are talking about chemical sunscreens. There was a bit of talk about some of those physical titanium dioxide, zinc oxide ingredients a number of years ago, which was largely debunked. So we won't spend a lot of time on that today. But I do want to talk about what we've been hearing about chemical sunscreens and what some people are just concerned about. One of the concerns with chemical sunscreens has been this idea that there are cancer-causing ingredients that can be found in these products. And what that came from was the chemical sunscreens, when they break down, can break down into their component parts, and they're largely derivatives of a compound called benzene. Benzene can be found when your sunscreen expires. So if the sunscreen is left too long, and I would venture to guess if all of you look around your homes, you can probably find an expired sunscreen. The expiration dates don't tend to be terribly generous. You may find that if that sunscreen is expired, we recommend that you throw it away. You should not use sunscreen past its expiration date. You should get a fresh tube. Not only because the sun protection can wane over time, there's no guarantee that that product is going to be as effective as if it was used prior to the expiration date, but also because of this concern that as happens with all chemical compounds, if they are left over a period of time, they will start to break down into their component parts. There have been no studies showing that this exposure is harmful, but there have been studies showing that that compound in other instances could cause health problems if used in large quantities in the long term. And so out of an abundance of caution, those manufacturers removed some products from the market, reformulated with additional stabilizers, looked at the expiration dates, and those compounds are still widely available in chemical sunscreens today. We believe that they are safe and effective in the dermatology community. I have sunscreens in my home that contain those compounds. I use them on myself and my family. I recommend them to my patients without reservation, noting, of course, that it's important to use them correctly. Second thing I wanted to talk about is some patients are just uncomfortable with the idea of something being absorbed into the skin, a chemical reaction taking place, and that being what blocks the skin, other than kind of the liquid shirt, if you will, of a physical blocker that doesn't get absorbed at all. And we understand that. While again, we do believe they're safe and effective, there are some studies that have shown that in large quantities, as we wear these chemical sunscreens and we go into our natural oceans, that there have been some changes to our coral reef that have been attributed to sort of the long-term environmental exposure of these chemical sunscreens. And certainly not to dismiss that. You know, we are all responsible for keeping our environment and our climate healthy. But we think that that sort of estrogen mimicry that they think takes place and is affecting the coral reefs is not translatable to human studies. So if you are going to be in a place where you're going to be in a body of water and you're going to be, you know, around a coral reef, from an environmental perspective, you may want to consider using a physical sunscreen in that environment. outside of that very specific scenario, we don't have any concrete data to suggest that these are harmful.
Both excellent points, Dr. Khoury. Thank you for that. One of the last things I wanted to discuss was one last technique that you can use to help lower your exposure to the sun's ultraviolet rays. If you forgot your UPF shirt, if you left your sunscreen in the car, how else can you protect your skin from the sun? And there are some easy tips that you can use in order to avoid the sun. So one of the things we talked about earlier was seeking shade. Sit under an umbrella, under a tree, go for your run on the shady side of the sidewalk when you can. Being in shade will reduce your risk and your exposure to the sun's light. In addition to that, avoiding being outside and in the sun during the sun's peak UV index, which is usually between 10 a.m. and 2 or 3 p.m. It's not to say you can't get sunburned or too much sun outside of those hours, but that's definitely at a higher UV index. And so if you keep your activities to the early morning or later in the evening, that's also going to lower your exposure.
Absolutely. And thinking about just looking for shade structures that are not in direct sunlight to the greatest extent possible. As I was joking before, you can always tell a dermatologist's family at the beach because an umbrella is not going to cut it. We usually have the little pop-up tents or little cabanas that we're sitting underneath to try to offload some of that direct contact with the ultraviolet rays to the greatest extent possible. And we understand that it's really difficult to do this perfectly. There's no such thing because the universe sometimes is just loves to play cosmic jokes on us. Both of my children are competitive swimmers. And of all sports, for a dermatologist child to choose, they are swimmers. And even with my more than judicious sun protection for them, I will admit, you can tell where their little bathing suits stop. And so we understand, we want you to live your lives and to enjoy the things that you enjoy the most. Our goal is to help to arm you with the knowledge and to give you the tips to do that in the safest way possible. If we're lucky, life is long, and we see these changes kind of happening slowly over time. We always joke that nobody looks the same at 18 and you've got to get there somehow, right? And a large part of the way that we get there is our skin sort of processing and internalizing its relationship with this cumulative sun damage over time. And so these little tips, making sure that you are thinking about your sun protective clothing, choosing the right kind of sunscreen for you. And we often say the best kind of sunscreen is the one you're going to wear. So thinking about the factors that make it a good match for your lifestyle, looking at your timing of exposure, peak versus non-peak hours, and seeking shade are all ways to sort of help make sure that when you're coming to visit us, we are throwing you a little party because we're so proud of how well you've taken care of your skin over time. We love it when we have nothing to do.
That's exactly right. I always tell my patients that, as far as the sun protective clothing goes, a lot of people think of it as a burden and uncomfortable. And I actually found once I switched myself and my whole family to the long sleeve rash guard type bathing suits, it actually encouraged me to go and enjoy the sun more. I could go in the ocean with the kids and go play in the pool with them. Before, I'd say, oh, I just put my sunscreen on, and if I hop in, I'm going to have to reapply, and that's just a lot. So I feel like by making that really simple change and changing what I'm wearing can really, I think, gave me a lot more enjoyment out of those outdoor activities.
I couldn't agree more. And I can't emphasize this enough. It's never too late. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey with sun protection and sun exposure. Every little bit that we can do to minimize that cumulative damage really does pay off in the long run. You don't necessarily have to go to the extent of your friendly neighborhood dermatologist. I will admit, I drive with UV blocking gloves, and my now 9-year-old son is so horribly mortified by this. He wants me to pick him up 2 blocks away of wherever we're going. But I gently explain to him that mommy's a dermatologist and nobody trusts a dermatologist with wrinkly hands. So, so you can sort of choose your level of where you want to draw that line of blocking these environmental effects. And we're your partners. We're here to help you. If you see something new, changing, concerning on your skin, if maybe your sun protection hasn't been ideal for many years. We are more than happy to talk with you about that, to check your skin, to identify any early trouble or warning signs, and to help you come up with a plan that can push back against a little bit of that moving forward.
That's exactly right. I think that is all the information that we have for you today. So again, if you have questions, feel free to comment them. And if you have questions that come up after this is over, you can always reach out to your local dermatologist.
Thank you so much for joining my beautiful partner, Dr. Goldberg, and I today for this discussion. We look forward to talking with you again about more fun skincare facts. Have a great day, Permanente.